Welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm Kim Piazza.
And I'm Phil Arno. Pope Francis will be visiting the United States soon. His message has commanded attention throughout the world, not just with Catholics, but with people of all faith. What will his message be when he comes to the United States? With us today is Father Joe Gatto, president of Christ the King Seminary. Father, this Pope, even though he's a Jesuit, and I know, score one for the good guys. I know his message has been kind of mixed. Some people have called him an enigma. He's come down on the side of liberal causes in the form of global warming and a message that seems to be anti-capitalism, various things that have been interpreted as almost political in nature. And on the other hand, he's been traditional in many of the things that he said. Mm-hmm. Is this a pope that's different than what we're used to in history?
Well, I think that Pope Francis is his own person. There's no doubt about it. And you said earlier his message. He has a very unique ability to weave his person, the way he lives, the way he acts, the way he expresses himself, and the message of the gospel in a profound way. We are probably going, wow, there's actually a pope who's not living in the papal palace, he's living in an apartment. We have a pope who's taking a little fiat around Italy. We have a pope who is concerned about the dignity of the human condition in Europe right now with all of the migration. He's concerned about the human person as it relates to the gospel. And so when people say he's taking a political position, he really isn't. He's taking the position of the gospel, dignity for the human person. And what economic system is going to actually fulfill that? Is capitalism going to do that? In some ways it will, but in other ways it won't. And don't forget, the Holy Father comes from a whole different hemisphere. Mm-hmm. The Holy Father comes from a whole different economic stratus where, you can talk about first world, you can talk about second, but we're talking third and fourth world. So he's seen the effects of economic systems that aren't concerned about the bottom half of the population, but more concerned about the upper. He's a man who, yes, is trained in the great tradition of Ignatius, but he's also a man who seems to know the gospel and has kind of integrated into his daily life by what he says and how he acts. That's what's catching attention. Politicians are quoting him all over the place because he's the in thing. Pope Francis says, so do I think that he's controversial? He's controversial in that he's raising the questions that maybe some other Holy Fathers haven't raised, but he's doing it in a way that's consistent with the ethics of the gospel and his own lifestyle.
And I think that we have to be very careful when we look at what he says, because so many people will try to politicize what he says and pull out of context perhaps a quote that the Pope has made. And without context, you can make anything mean, literally. Anything. I love him. I think he's awesome.
I think I couldn't agree with you more, Kim. I think that we have a Holy Father who is out there and people are paying attention by the way he acts and what he says, and there's a consistency there. He's bringing authenticity back to the gospel, and the church is being noticed in a way it hasn't in a long time.
He isn't being lost in the trappings of his place, which that's something I think we haven't seen for years, and that's exciting. That's exciting to everyday folks. It's exciting to people who even aren't Catholic.
It's interesting. He's coming on a journey to the United States, but we can't forget, where's he going first? He's going to Cuba. He's going from Cuba, and he's going to address the Congress of the United States. He's invited all seminarians and novices to meet him in the Basilica. He wants to talk directly to the future ministers of the United States, myself and all of my seminarians and all of my students. He wants to tell them that they have to realize that they image the Good Shepherd who cares for the sheep. We haven't had that we've had that in the Holy Fathers, please, John Paul II,
but
Benedict,
in a different way.
But in a different way.
A different approach.
Right.
Is he too outspoken? Is he misunderstood?
If I say something to the two of you, Phil's going to take it one way and Kim's going to take it another. Everyone's going to take it from their own perspective. Do they like the church? What he has done recently with annulments for the church, he's streamlined the process. He's taken away all fees for that. He's concerned about divorce and separated Catholics. He's concerned about those who are questioning their orientation. He's talking about the migrants that are migrating. He's inviting parishes to open up. that's a gospel I can live with.
I feel like he is creating an atmosphere where there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of back and forth, whether people are agreeing with what he's saying or disagreeing with what he's saying. He's creating an atmosphere where people are beginning to think. And that's so exciting.
Well, he's certainly a man of the people. I did not know until I read an article today that he was once a nightclub bouncer. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. This is news to me.
Well, his early beginnings...
Before he became a Jesuit or after?
Knowing the Jesuits, I'm not quite sure. But you know, he springs from the people. And as you said, his upbringing was in Latin America, and that kind of formed his vision of how society works. He's coming to the United States. This is his first visit.
Correct.
Do you think he'll learn from the way our society handles capitalism and handles the poor? You think that's a learning experience for him?
Well, the first thing he's already done is he's had teleconferences with groups all across the country asking questions, trying to find out about young people and married life and what the church means, and he's already done that. And where is he going? He's going to Washington to meet with the President of the United States. He's going to do a speech to the joint House and Senate. He's going to the United Nations not only to learn, but also to share with them his vision of the human person and the gifts of the gospel. I mean, I think that he is a man who learns well. Forgive me for saying it again, he's a very bright man. He's a very educated Jesuit who understands the full breadth of the gospel, who's had tons of pastoral experience. You know, going every single week to the poorest parts, you know, of in Argentina to be with the people. You learn a lot through experience, and him coming to the United States is another opportunity. He will not scold, he will not do any of that. He will listen, and he will share his hopes for every single person in the United States.
What do you think his influence is going to be on the Catholic Church as we know it, and as it's been progressing over the last generation? Do you think he's going to change any direction?
I think he's already had an impact. I think that what he is trying to do is find that middle ground. He has taken seriously the renewal of the Curia. He's put some very good people together. He's looked at the Vatican Bank. He's talking to bishops. He's put together boards in order to review the behavior of bishops and priests. I think that he is trying to make the church credible for 2015 and beyond. I think there is no doubt about his love for the church, and therefore his concern for its traditions and its richness. But he's also concerned about where is the church going to be, and will it be credible in 2016, 2017, and in the future. I'm elated.
Mm-hmm. And as much as he's a very modern man, I mean, the Pope is on Twitter. The Pope tweets. That's so cool, yes. Right? As much as he's very, very modern, and that's so with it now, I've read some things that really show that he also is very vested in some ideas that I think a lot of churches are glassing over, that the devil is real, you know, there is a heaven, there is a hell, there is an absolute right, there is an absolute wrong. I don't feel like that's gone by the wayside in his modern approach.
You know, the other day in one of the teleconferences, a young girl asked him, what do you want the people of the United States and young people to do and to be? He said exactly what you were just now. You were courageous to sing a song for the Holy Father. We need courage. We need to be able to say, this is who we are, and this is what the gospel brings us, and we need to live that so people can make the choices. Is everyone going to say, yeah, that's perfect, that's wonderful? Of course not. But I do think there's an authenticity that we can feel, and it's palatable. He certainly has enlivened priests, and he has told seminarians, it's so funny, simply, he says, if you don't know how to smile, then adios, don't think about priesthood, because you have to be a happy person and a happy minister of the gospel. I think that's wonderful stuff that we normally don't hear. And he goes off the cuff when he talks sometimes. He's extemporaneous, and he says things, and I think his people around him are going, what is he saying? What is he doing? They're trying to figure out who he is.
Good for him.
I think it's awesome.
Are you going to have a chance to go to any of these places where he's?
We're going, the Holy Father's invited every seminarian and novice in the country to be in Washington for the Mass, and he has asked us to be in the Basilica so that when he finishes the canonization Mass, he's coming into the Basilica to talk directly to future priests, future religious women and men, people who are preparing to be the shepherds for the future. And that in itself, so all of our seminarians, most of our faculty are all going to be there, because I want them not only to hear it on Twitter, I want them to hear it from the mouth of the man who is saying it himself. Just stop and think, if you're a seminarian thinking about priests, and all of a sudden there's Pope Francis, a man from Argentina who's become Pope and who's living an authentic Good Shepherd life. I can't think of any way that a seminarian could be affected better.
Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect lead-in. How is the seminary doing?
It's doing well. We're on the map. We're moving forward. This is my second full year. I'm very proud of my faculty. We are moving forward. You know, the first year you work with what you have and you learn, but I've brought priests and religious in, women and men on the faculty, director of mission. I brought a Dominican who has his doctorate in preaching, because I believe that what we do at the seminary affects every single parish in Western New York. Every county, every deacon, every layperson, every religious education program. And if we can bring in quality people for them to be trained by, then it affects the church of the future. So I have to say we're doing well, and we need your support.
So if we were to go down to the campus of Christ the King Seminary and see the students who are there, you know, who are we seeing when we walk on campus?
Well, that's a good question, Kim, because people, when they ask me, well, how's the seminary doing? They want me to tell them, well, we have so many seminarians for priesthood, and we have 36. 15 years ago we had 12, so that's really good. But we also have 107 graduate students, men and women, young people who are coming to get graduate degrees so they can be administrators in a parish, directors of religious education, youth ministers. We have a diaconate program where husband and wives come to prepare themselves to become permanent deacons in the church. Last year, we had over 9,000 people come on campus for retreats, conferences, workshops, days of prayer, all kinds of things. That means that in some way, this little place, 132 acres in East Aurora, is kind of the heartbeat of the place where people form themselves for the future ministry, under the image and direction of someone like Pope Francis.
And that future ministry, it doesn't mean only to be a priest.
No,
we
it
can
does
go
not.
down to East Aurora
Exactly.
and get a graduate degree in religious studies, and
Right.
and without the expectation that you're going to be going
Right.
into.
We have retreats for husbands and wives. We have retreats for college students. We have days of prayer for women, prayer groups for different people, because we believe that we have to be, obviously the heart of our mission is to prepare future priests, but we also want to be there for you and whoever. And that's the gift of Christ the King. And I have to be honest with you, it's a well-kept secret sometimes. And I think the word is getting out. We're right now in September, right smack dab in the middle of our seminary appeal. So there's 121 speakers going out to all the parishes in the diocese to let them know about Christ the King, and of course encourage their donations. But it's more important that we welcome them to come, know that we want them to be there, and what can we offer each parish and each person.
Well, thank you so much, Father Joseph from oh my goodness, Christ the King Seminary in East Aurora. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure to be
here. And
here.
if you would like more information on the school, you can go to the website, which is cks.edu.